Hey there, YouTube. Dart Stacker here, doing another interview. This time it's with David from Myrtle Beach Coin Exchange in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Really cool cat. Glad I got to meet him. Actually, I wish I lived closer to him or he lived closer to me. I would love to talk to him more, but this is probably a one-time thing. Mrs. Skywalker and I got a impromptu vacation. We just decided to jet on down to Myrtle Beach to hang out. We stopped in, talked to David for a few minutes. Seemed like a really cool guy. I asked him for an interview on the spot. He said come back in a couple of days after hours, and that's what we did. Came in there a couple of days later as he was closing the shop, and I got to talk to him for a few minutes. I really wanted to talk to him longer, but I don't want to keep the guy too long from his dinner and getting home to his wife. I squeezed in.
There is a great disturbance in the force.
Don't know the power of the dark side.
We're here with David of Coin Exchange in Myrtle Beach, Carolina. Really cool local coin shop owner. Came in here. Mrs. Skywalker and I took an impromptu vacation down here in Myrtle Beach. And as we always do, we stop in local coin shops and introduce ourselves, improve the wares, try to buy a few things from here and there all over the country. That's how we met David. He seemed like a really cool guy, was willing to chat with me, so I thought I'd do a quick interview with him. How's it going, David?
Marvelous.
Thanks for doing this for me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Well, I appreciate your coming in and giving me the time to chat with you.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Like how long you've been in the business? How did you get in the business?
Well, this store's been here 12 and a half years. I had an interest in a store in Virginia for a few years prior to that. I've been collecting coins for pretty much all my life and spent many years in Virginia. But I just decided that having a store would be a fun thing to do, and it's sort of grown all out of proportion since I've been here. For a number of years, I've been the only store in Myrtle Beach, but it's been fun.
So what about your personal interests? Like how did you get into it? Was it a father-son thing?
No, actually, I was the only one in my family that collected. They bought me a little blue Whitman folder, and I was 7 years old and started collecting.
Huh.
And I enjoyed it very much and just expanded it into every denomination of coin and collected foreign coins and foreign currency and all of that.
Cool. So what in your shop here, what do you say gives you the most volume in and out?
You know, it's about equal. Bullion and collectible material is just about 50-50. Some people, there's a fair amount of crossover. Many of the coin collectors also are silver stackers, but it runs about half and half.
Yeah, that's most of my audience is the stackers, and in the auction there's the guys that like to collect the specialty silver, but yeah, there's definitely crossover. So you said you've been collecting coins for 61 years. Is that true?
Yes.
I can't even believe you're 61 years old.
67 years old.
Well, you sure don't look like it. Even Mrs. Skywalker says so.
Coin collecting keeps you young.
Well, it's not stressful on you. That's for sure. It's a relaxing hobby as far as I'm concerned. So you've had this building. You've been in this shop for 12 years. You said. And as we were chatting when I first came in, you're telling me like how busy it's been recently. Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of people are buying silver and gold because they're a little bit concerned about the condition of the dollar and the way things are going. So I've been seeing a lot of folks buying gold and silver that I have never seen before. And people that used to buy a little bit are now buying much more than they used to. And the volume has increased, probably tripled in the last 8 months, which is worrisome.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them.
Right.
Hopefully this COVID thing will go away soon, but I don't know that the dollar will get back on track anytime soon. So it is something to worry about.
Right. Between the political situation, the pandemic, the economy, like when things are unsure like that, it really spurs the precious metal market.
Yes.
So, in your personal stack, what do you like to collect?
Well, I collect really unusual sorts of things. I like to collect primitive money, which is things that used to be used as money, but mostly aren't recognized as money now. Um, I also collect calendar coins, which are medallions that have calendars printed on them. And because in the 1700s and 1800s, calendars were not printed like they are today, so people carried tokens in their pocket that had calendars printed on them,
Huh.
and they're quite unique. They're very hard to find today, and there's a number of different varieties of them. Some of them have mechanical moving parts that allow you to do multiple years on the calendar,
No kidding, I've never
and
heard of that.
and they're pretty cool. Um, I also collect type coins, and I collect sovereigns by date and mint mark, which is sort of an unusual thing to collect. Unfortunately, they've gotten a little bit expensive here now that gold has risen so much.
So, tell me about you were saying the things that are the primitive coins, primitive money. Well, tell me more about that.
Well, almost anything that used to be used as money over the ages counts as money at some point in time. So things like uh, teeth, believe it or not, compressed tea, um, playing cards have been used as money, tobacco. Um, there's a fellow named Opitz that wrote a book on ethnographic study of money, and in that book it covers many, many different subjects of all the forms of things that have been used for barter or money at one time or another. And a lot of people collect some of that stuff. Um, it's just phenomenal how many different things could be counted as money over the ages. Um, you can use almost anything for barter if someone finds it to be of value.
True.
Stone money in the Polynesian islands was used as money, and is quite rare today. And you can make money out of almost any material and use it for barter purposes if someone believes that it has value. So some of that stuff's kind of fun to collect.
Yeah, that's all. That sounds really cool. I'm gonna have to check into that. I know one of the tenets of our hobby is that rarity and age aren't always indicative of value. So, are those things you collect that primitive money? Is it expensive?
Some of it is. Some of it's fairly common. Some of it is quite rare. The Yap stone money, some of which gets to be very large and very heavy, is extremely rare. Of course, you can't take any of that out of those islands any longer, but the stuff that exists today is worth thousands of dollars for a piece of that stone money.
Wow.
Um, Most of the original stuff is quite rare, but obviously there are replicas of a lot of that stuff, like the compressed tea. It's hard to find a piece of compressed tea from the 1700s that still exists today, but
I'm sure it probably falls apart, eh?
yeah, it falls apart. So mostly what you find today are replicas from the 50s and 60s, and even that can be pricey just because of what it is.
Yeah. So what's a say average price or a range in the pressed tea from like the 1700s?
I've never seen one. I wouldn't even know.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
It was used in Russia and China and Mongolia and places like that, and they would press it into a brick, and some of them they would press into like a Hershey bar has the lines so that you can break it into little pieces,
Right.
and some of it just has a round or a rectangular brick when they would put an image on one side. Just like a Hershey bar has a picture of it says Hershey on one side.
Right.
They would press an image into one side of it. So they're really cool looking, but yeah, a lot of salt used to be used as money. As a matter of fact, the word saltum in Latin is where the word salary comes from today. So the Roman soldiers used to be partially paid with salt as part of their pay.
to use as currency or to like season meat?
Well, it was used as pay, but then they would use it as part of their food to store because it would keep meat from spoiling,
Right.
and they would also use it in their food because it was necessary to sustain life.
Yeah.
And the problem with salt is the further away from the ocean you are, the harder it is to get. So it becomes worth a lot if you live a long way from the ocean.
Very cool. Speaking of Rome, do you collect any like the ancient Roman and Greece stuff?
I really don't collect the ancients. The ancients are really confusing and complicated.
You are correct.
I do collect some of the medieval coins, the hand-hammered coins from the medieval period, from Germany and England. I find them very fascinating, but I really don't collect a lot of the ancient coins from Greece and the Roman period.
Yeah, it is hard to follow, hard to keep track of. Like I kind of dabble in it, but I just buy like the lower end stuff. But it is cool to think about having like a piece of currency that's 2,000 years old.
Yeah, I have a few, but I don't actively collect those sorts of things. But the ones from England and from Germany, from the Middle Ages, at least they have lettering and things that you can decipher, and they have images that are a little bit more easily figured out, and you can. The books are easier to understand, so I find it easier to collect those.
When Mrs. Skywalker and I were here earlier in the week, you showed us some paper currency that was very interesting. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, our currency used to be big. It was about almost twice the size of the modern currency. In 1929, the federal government shrank our currency down from the old size to the modern size just to save paper and ink. And the public really embraced the smaller size because obviously it fit into wallets better. Wallets weren't any bigger before that. They just folded the currency up a different way so that it would fit into a wallet.
Yeah.
And but older money was it's much more rare today because most of it was exchanged for the new smaller size, but it's all still legal tender today, and a lot of people still have a few examples of it remaining, and I could show you a few examples of that if you'd like.
Yeah, definitely.
It's unfortunately mostly fairly expensive.
Yes. Yeah, there's some beautiful art on there, and that's the history and the art is really what got me into looking at paper currency.
Would you like me to get some out?
Yes, please.
Okay, we'll do that one. And we'll do that one. And probably that one. And that one. That one's cool. It's got Martha Washington and George Washington on the back of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we have a silver certificate, which is the modern size, and here's a silver certificate of the old size currency.
Big difference.
Big difference in size. This is one of the most common of the large size notes, so it's not exceptionally expensive. And here's a note called a Black Eagle.
For obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons.
Very cool.
It's a little bit more expensive.
How much is that?
This one's about $140.
Very nice.
Now this note is a little bit more rare. It's called a chief.
Also for obvious reasons.
Also for obvious reasons. This note's a little over $800, so it's a lot more rare. It's also in nice condition. In lower grade, obviously, it would be a little bit less expensive.
Good stuff.
And this note is in super condition and is also very rare. This is called a bison for obvious reasons. It's one of the most popular.
Who are the people there on the Lewis and Clark?
That's Lewis and Clark.
Interesting choice.
Yes.
Very cool.
And this note is about $1,600.
Wow.
Even in low grade, this note is expensive.
And a 35, this goes on the same scale as the coins up to 70?
Yes. It goes from 1 to 70.
And 35 is
a mid grade. 35 is a high VF.
Gotcha.
But currency is still a little bit different as far as grade goes. Things like ink, tears, pinholes cause the grade to be decreased. Coins obviously are not affected by things like that. Coins don't tear, and they don't get ink on them.
Mm-hmm.
So currency is more fragile than coins. Now this is a really interesting note. This is a gold certificate, so it would be redeemable in gold coin instead of a silver certificate.
Very cool.
And this one's about $400.
So expensive, but not
outrageous.
Yeah. Very cool.
And this note is in exceptional condition, and it's also a gold certificate. This is a series 1922, so this note would have been in circulation from 1922 until 1934 when gold was removed from circulation. This note's about $950.
It's beautiful. Do you think that's an accurate picture of George Washington? I've seen some very unflattering pictures and sculptures of him.
Probably. The artists of the day tended to paint fairly representative pictures, although they tried to make them a little bit more flattering, but I think they were fairly accurate depictions of the way people looked. So
Gotcha.
My guess is it probably was fairly accurate. And we've seen several different renditions of how he looked, and they're all fairly similar. So my guess is it's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
So the large size currency, the very first currency issued by the United States was issued in 1861. Most people have no idea that the U.S. did not issue currency prior to that at all. Only gold, silver, and copper coins. So if you wanted to buy something expensive prior to that, you had to pay for it with real hard money, not with paper currency. And of course, we talk about this being paper. This is not paper at all. It's actually a cotton fiber. It's really more like a linen, which is why it doesn't dissolve when you run it through the washing machine in your blue jeans.
Right.
And if there's a receipt in your pocket, it will go away because that is paper.
Yeah.
So we talk about this being paper currency. It's really not paper currency at all. But the United States first issued currency in 1861 during the Civil War. And prior to that, there was no federal currency issued at all. The only currency issued before that was continental currency, and banks could issue their own personal currency for that particular bank because there was no such thing as a national bank or banks that were controlled by the federal government.
I always wondered how that worked. Like, just any old bank could just like start pressing out some coins.
They could issue not coins but currency, but it was only good at that bank. So if you got on your horse and rode to the next town, they may or may not take that money because they didn't know if that bank was still in business, or they would take it at a discount because they would have to go back to that town in order to redeem that currency for gold or silver.
So that really discourages
so basically
trading.
That money was only good in that community.
Gotcha.
And that's why if that bank got robbed, that community was going to go broke. And most people don't understand that. They never explained that in the movies when they would form a posse and hang every stranger within 20 miles. They had to get that money back, the gold and silver, because the bad guys never stole the paper money that was in the bank because it was worthless, just like paper money today. That's why everybody buys gold and silver,
right?
Because this is just a piece of paper.
And we come full circle back to the coinage.
And here we are.
Very cool. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're here talking to me after hours, but it's been a pleasure talking to you. I did want to say one thing. Everyone's going to ask me, You don't have a website. You don't, or at least don't do commerce through your website. You don't do eBay, and you're kind of skittish about taking phone orders. Is that right?
No, I can take phone orders, and we do have a Facebook page where we list some of the new things that come into the store. So I don't mind doing mail order, but at the moment I don't have a website or a eBay presence.
So Myrtle Beach Coin and Exchange, and once again, this is David, and it's really been a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you for your time, and I would be happy to hear from any of your followers.
Awesome. I'll send them your way. I'm sure you'll get some business.
Thank you.
Thanks again.